What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Goblin, and today I'm coming in with a classic trip report video, a little LSD video for you guys today. Hope you guys do enjoy. Drop a like if you do, and also, my sincere apologies for not uploading. Just keep an eye out for the next video. It's coming in hot. It's on a meteor right now, and the meteor's going fast as fuck, and it's about to slam into all of us. So, either way, hope you guys enjoy this video. Drop a like if you do. And today's video is kind of an interesting one. You know, this isn't a trip where, like, I went to a party and tripped nuts. You know, this is more of... I'm not really sure how I'm going to title this video yet, but this was probably the most impactful trip. Or I don't want to say most impactful, but the most, I guess, eye-opening trip for me, you know? Because the result of this trip, and I know in a previous video I believe I've touched on a similar trip I had, which kind of made me, I guess, slow down a little more with the harder drugs I was doing back in the day. You know, I assume most of you guys know, you've watched my channel. Back in, you know, early 2016, I was doing anything I could get my hands on. And I want to say, like, maybe April time was around the time, you know, March and April of 2016 is when I really kind of started to change that and slow down, eventually stop and just limit it to smoking a bunch of weed and popping some acid here and there, with of course the occasional exception to like drinking at a party or some shit. But yeah, you know, this is, I know I believe I made a trip report video on like the first trip I had that kind of made me rethink it. This is the trip that made me stop. This is the trip that after this day, all I did was drop acid on the very rare occasion, and I'm talking like very rare occasion after this, and completely cold turkey all the hard shit I was doing, like ketamine, coke, all that shit, just cold turkey it. So, you know, basically how this played out, this was in April of 2016, and this was, like I mentioned earlier, after the first trip I had that was fairly similar to this. And, you know, I already kind of had in my mindset, like, yeah, you know, I probably need to stop doing drugs, or like doing hard drugs at least. I mean, I need to tone it down and scale it back a bit, because, you know, in that trip prior to this one that was similar to this one, I just kind of sat and thought about the effects of all the hard shit I was doing, and like, really, what is the benefit and why am I doing it? And this trip was kind of more informational for me. You know, one of the things that I seem to not be able to resist when I'm tripping is like information. Like, for some reason, when I'm tripping and I'm alone and like I'm just chilling at home, I get in this certain mindset sometimes where I'm just like, I want to learn. Like, let's go watch some documentaries right now, you know? And I'm like that even when I'm sober. Like, sometimes I just get like that. But, you know, this particular trip was really impactful on me. And basically what happened was I dropped 2 tabs. They were supposedly double dose. I believe they were, because they were pretty strong. I think they were, I want to say 160 UG, just about. It was either 150 or 160. They were some really nice tabs I got from my buddy Ashton. And I went home that night, and a lot of my trips, you know, normally I start them when I'm out with people, and then I'll come home and still be tripping. This one was different. This one I dropped alone and tripped the entirety of it alone. You know, I wasn't with any people, and I'd done this before, but, you know, most of the time I would just dick around and smoke a bunch of weed and not do anything. You know, this trip I was like, okay, I want to like try to, you know, really get something out of this one. You know, like I was in that mindset. I was just like, all right, let's do this. So I popped my 2 tabs around, like, I want to say it was like 9:30 p.m. And this was luckily on a weekend. Thank God this wasn't on a school night. This was a Saturday night. And I remember I dropped my 2 tabs, and it starts off like all my trips that I have alone do. You know, I'm sitting at my computer, just browsing the internet, playing some games, playing League, playing Counter-Strike, whatever the hell I was doing. And, you know, I want to say like maybe 45 minutes to an hour after I dropped, it hit me, you know, and it hit me prior to that, but it was like a really subtle come up. And then I just got hit, you know, and it was like, I was experienced with psychedelics at this point, so it wasn't like I was overwhelmed, but it was like, holy shit, these are some great tabs, you know, like I was just sitting there looking at my computer. And by the time it hit me, I'd luckily finished the game of League I was playing, so I was just kind of like looking at my desktop and just like browsing YouTube and like Live Leak and all that shit. And I just kind of felt this like I don't even know how to put it. Just this weight being lifted out of my skull. Like it felt like my brain got lifted out of my skull almost. Like it was mentally still there, but like physically my head was just really light, you know? And I just felt really like not tingly, just kind of like really like warm-ish. It's such a weird feeling. Like I can't even begin to explain it to you guys. It was a really weird night. So, anyways, I start coming up, I start feeling it, I'm starting to get the visuals as time progresses, I'm starting to see colors way more vibrantly, things are kind of slightly distorted, but not like super intensely, just like, and maybe they weren't even distorted, I was just thinking they were, but either way, like, I would look at my monitor and be like, why is the fucking corner so big or some shit like that, and I had this dope ass like rainbow RGB keyboard. It was like a Razer something, I don't remember what it was, and I just stared at it for like 20 fucking minutes. And most of the time what I'll do is as soon as I start to come up on a trip, I'll give it about an hour after I like really start to feel it, and then I'll smoke a fat blunt or I'll smoke a bowl or something. This trip was a little different. Yes, I did smoke, but it was later on into the trip. So I was sitting there looking at my keyboard, just looking at the desktop, kind of like just letting it embrace me, just letting the trip take me, I guess, Most of the time I would try to be in control of my trips, I'd try to like sit there and really like give it my all to be in complete control and like do everything how I want it to be done. And this time I was just like, fuck it, dude. All I know is I want to see some cool shit. I want to learn some cool shit. So fuck it. I'm just going to let the acid do its thing. So, I started browsing YouTube a little bit, and that like all over my homepage on YouTube is like recommended videos like those National Geographic documentaries and like the Vice, reports on like drugs and all that shit. And I'm really into those, like even now, when I'm sober, I still watch those. I fucking love, like, lately I've been watching the like National Geographic like prison life documentaries because I find them interesting because like to see how a motherfucker copes with like knowing he's locked up for 30 years. Like I'd fucking end my life. But anyways, I start looking at a bunch of different, recommended videos. And I first started off watching some completely irrelevant shit. I was watching like Martin Shkreli documentaries. For those of you guys who don't know who that is, he's he's big in the pharmaceutical industry. I probably just butchered that word, pharmaceutical. I don't know how to say it. And he's just known for being like the Hitler of AIDS medicine, I think it was. I don't really remember. I think it was AIDS medicine, I believe. But either way, he's basically just a dickhead. So I watched a documentary on him, and I'd watched it before. I actually watched it like while I was tripping for the first time, and I only ever watched this when I was tripping, never when I was sober. And after this, I kind of moved on, just clicking through random videos, and I got to those Vice drug documentaries. Like if you see the if you guys go on Vice and you see like the the how to sell drugs video on Vice, that's a huge one. There's they have a bunch of different shit, like that one about that crazy drug that like lets you hypnotize people. And then in the recommended of those, there's like those National Geographic documentaries on like heroin and coke and all that shit. I started watching a bunch of drug videos, and I don't really know what compelled me to do it. It could have been a result of the previous trip I had that made me kind of want to slow down with those, that made this pique my curiosity, but I dove into it. I spent hours just watching drug videos, just on end, documentaries on drug users, facts about drugs. I was learning more during this trip about the drugs I was doing than I ever did when I was doing them. Outside of acid, of course. Like, I learned more about the effects that coke can have on me and Molly can have on me during this trip and just watching these videos and learning than I ever did through actually doing the drug. Because the thing is, when I was doing it, I never gave a fuck. I didn't ask what this would do to me. I didn't ask what the side effects were. I fucking popped that shit, dude. I didn't care. And this kind of altered my perspective. I was sitting there and learning, and like, at the time, call me an idiot, but I didn't know coke was really that bad for you. And for those of you who don't know, it's fucking horrible for you. It's horrid for your body. Cocaine's awful for you. But at the time, I didn't think it was that bad. I just thought, like, it's addictive. I didn't really know shit about it. And I'm watching these documentaries on, like, coke and crack and, all this shit. And I'm tripping my ass off as well. But, like, at the same time, even though I couldn't really, like, it's weird how I like interpreted all the information I was getting. Like I couldn't necessarily think super clearly because my mind was just kind of tunnel visioned onto like one very specific thing, and that thing happened to be these drug videos. But when I would try to think past exactly what was being said or like what was on the screen, I would just lose track of my mind. Like I would just lose track of it. So I just sat there watching all these videos and just taking in all the info. And I did this for like 3 hours. And, about halfway through the session, I paused the video and I rolled up a blunt, and I was sitting in my room in my mom's house, and I would always smoke in there. I would always smoke in my mom's room, even though I knew she would smell it. Or not my mom's room, in my room at my mom's house, even though I knew she would smell it because our house was super small. It was a condo, and there's just no way she wouldn't smell it, But I didn't care. I would just tuck t-shirts under the door and smoke a fat fucking blunt. I didn't even bother to open a window. So I roll up my blunt somehow. I thought I was like really pro at rolling when I was on acid. Then I remember one time I rolled up some extra blunts for the next day when I was tripping, as I was like about to go do something else, and I forgot about them till the next day, and I opened them up and they were just the loosest fucking dookie blunts ever. But anyways, back on topic. So, I roll up this blunt, I spark it, I'm smacking it. Hit play on the video again. I didn't want to like miss any of the video because like I mentioned earlier, I was like super tunnel vision. So like if I wanted to roll a blunt, I couldn't watch a video at the same time. Like I had to stare at this fucking blunt and perfect it, So I started smoking, I smacked my blunt. I rolled up maybe like a gram and a half. It was a decently fat blunt. And I'm continuing the documentary, and I remember the one I was watching at this point wasn't a Vice one. It was a National Geographic one, and I believe it was about like heroin and like opiate users and shit. And this didn't even apply to me because I didn't do heroin, but deep down I always had this fear that I was going to one day, like on some real shit. I was always scared I was going to become a heroin junkie, because like when I first started doing drugs, I never, I told myself, I'm just going to smoke weed and drink. Never going to do shit. Then I smoked crack. Then I did coke. And then I did Xans. Then I did oxys. Then I did hydros. Then I did K. Then I did triple Cs. The list goes on. So, I kind of, after that list started to build up of the drugs I'd done that I said I wouldn't, I was pretty fucking scared that like one day some scenario was going to play out where I would try heroin and fucking full blown just be into that shit. I was always spooked. So I was watching it, and this documentary, as I was smoking this blunt and as I finished, I was just sitting there, and it was just like some real high motherfucker shit. Like I was just sitting there staring at the screen like wide-eyed, just thinking, damn, just thinking like, fuck, dude, this is shitty. Like it showed these just terribly, like horribly unhealthy people sitting in like a motel bathroom shooting up dope, fucking just doing disgusting things for money, just a fucked ass life I didn't want to live. And I was sitting there and I was like, well, I don't really do heroin now, but I don't know if I would one day, like I didn't have the self-control with drugs to like not do that. Like, I mean, I'd been offered it, or I hadn't been offered it, but if I asked for it, I could have gotten it. And luckily I didn't, but I feel like if I was fucked up enough on something and someone offered it to me while I was fucked up, I would take it. Honestly, not anymore, but at the time, yeah. Yeah, I honestly think I would have taken it. So, I'm watching this and I'm just thinking like, damn, dude, all the shit I'm doing right now is leading me to this. Like, and I'm listening to their stories, and the interviewer, the narrator or whatever he was asking them like, oh, so how'd you start? When did you start? What did you do? And they started naming off all these drugs, and I was like, holy fuck, dude, I've done like a scary amount of these drugs that these people said they did that led them to heroin. So I'm like, oh shit, like, uh-oh, this isn't good. So I'm still just staring at this fucking video, and, I put my blunt out. I'm just watching it. It was a long one. I think it was like, I don't remember if it was 45 minutes or like 29 minutes or some odd amount of time. It was in that range, though, I believe. And, I'm sitting there, and I'm just tripping sack, but, like, I'm also just taking in all this info, and finally that video ends. Some more time goes by. I'm watching some more. And I finally run out of videos I want to watch, and I didn't even realize how much time I'd spent doing it. Hours had gone by. It was like 1 in the morning, 1:30, and I dropped at like 9:30. So I was like, holy shit. So I went and laid on my bed, and I just laid there. I didn't do anything. I didn't look on my phone. I didn't roll up another blunt. I didn't do anything. I just laid on my bed, and I just kind of sat there because after seeing all those videos and taking in all that info, I was like, well, fuck, dude, I kind of want to like comprehend this. So I laid there, just stared at my ceiling. And I remember, I was thinking and trying to like almost like talk to myself. I'm pretty sure I was like literally talking to myself, like I was just laying there thinking, and like my thoughts were just overflowing. There was so much shit going through my head that was all related to like drugs. And I closed my eyes. I remember this part really well. I closed my eyes, and it wasn't what I saw, it wasn't, I didn't see anything that was super crazy, just like kind of, I don't even know how to explain it. Just the normal, like, it's so hard to explain what you see when your eyes are closed when you're tripping, but like, the best way to describe it is just kind of like a very faint galaxy almost, but not really. Like it's weird. It's just like a bunch of little stars scattered around, when you close your eyes. And it wasn't what I saw, it was what I thought, because after I closed my eyes, it was like my senses when my eyes were open, I was looking around, like we're just being overloaded because I was just tripping. Everything was colorful, everything was like bright. And once I closed my eyes, it kind of cleared my head a little more, and I was able to think. And I laid there like that for like 30 minutes, and I just thought. And the conclusion I came to after running through all my thoughts in my head and everything I possibly wanted to like run through while I was tripping was fuck all this drug shit. Fuck all these harder things. I need my weed and I need my acid, and fuck everything else, And that was kind of, that was like the little conclusion I drew in my head. And at the time, I was just, after I thought that, I remember sitting there and I was just like, I'm tripping balls right now if I think I'm not doing all that shit again. Like I was like, my God, dude, this is some great acid if it's making me think I'm not doing K again. Like, what the fuck? And I remember the rest of the trip was pretty normal. After this component of the trip, I just went back to doing my thing, the normal thing, playing games, smoking. I think I packed a bowl and ripped another bowl. I didn't smoke that much that night. Just smoked a blunt and like maybe a bowl or two. And, I smoked some bowls. I watched some more random YouTube videos, like comedy videos, funny shit. I watched some Netflix, I'm pretty sure. I fucking wish I was into The Office when I was tripping, because I feel like The Office would be golden when you're tripping. I don't know, dude. It's too late now. It's too late to turn back, but fuck, man. Speaking of Netflix. Anyways, so, I was back to my usual thing, just, watching random YouTube videos, random Netflix stuff. I'm always watching something when I'm tripping. If I'm alone, I'm always watching or playing something. So, the rest of the trip isn't really anything substantial. Like, I just did that, and then just as I was coming down, I just laid in bed, let myself relax as slowly as I could, and just kind of fell asleep eventually. And a lot of people say, like, oh, you can't sleep when you're coming down off acid. You really can. There's a little tip. What I do, weed helps me with it, personally, on the come down. Like, on the very end part of the come down. Like, I'm talking, like, 10 or 11 hours into the trip. Like, lay in bed, turn all your lights out, turn a fan on. If there's like a digital clock or something, turn it off. Get all sources of light out of that fucking room. The only source of light you should have is if you're smoking, light your bowl. That's all you need. And just lay down. Just lay down, close your eyes, and think if you can't fall asleep, and eventually you'll knock out. It might take a while, but it won't seem like a while, because if you can't fall asleep yet, you're probably still tripping. So it won't seem like a while. But that's my little advice. But anyways, I just kind of laid down, went through my little procedure of falling asleep on the come down, and knocked out. And the next day came around, and typically I would, at that point, I was kind of at the peak of my K use. That was like, well, no, actually the peak was definitely in March. This was April. I was slowing down a little bit, but after this, it wasn't even like I went out of my way, or it was difficult for me to not do these harder drugs. I was doing like K and Coke and Molly and all that shit. It's more like the thought just never even crossed my mind after this. It really didn't. Like, normally I'd go to school, I'd be fiending for K. I'd hit up my boy Ashton and be like, yo, meet me in the bathroom, sit in the stall next to me, I'll slide the bread under, you chop it up, put it on my ID, I'll snort it. He's like, all right. Yeah, that's typically how we do it. But this particular day, And every day following this, I just lost the urge, and I remember the next time I went to school, because this was a Saturday when I did this trip, and, Sunday came around, didn't do shit. Monday rolled around, went to school. I remember Ashton was like, yo, you gonna need any K anytime soon? I just said no. I didn't even explain it. I was just like, nah, dude. And he's just like, oh. He's like, are you done doing it? And I was just like, I guess, yeah. And he's just like, oh, good shit, dude. It's horrible for you. Don't fucking do it, because I remember he used to tell me how he had K pains from railing too much K, and that's kind of where K causes a lot of bladder problems. So, yeah, he had a lot of, like, pain in his, like, groin and shit from railing K, and the only way to fix it for him was doing more K. But anyways, I just kind of, the thought never really crossed my mind to do a lot of that harder shit. Like, hydros sounded disgusting to me. I was well beyond the triple C's phase at this point. Pretty well beyond it. I never did them after this. Still haven't done them since then. K, after this day, I only did once, and it was some bunk-ass K. I don't even think it was K. I'll get to that in another video, but, I don't even think it was K, and outside of acid and weed, the only other thing I did during that entire time was drink at a party. A couple parties here and there. That's all I did, and I wish I had a better explanation as to, like, what exactly caused me to stop, but, like, I don't. It just happened. So, yeah, that's really all I've got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed. Drop a like if you did. New video tomorrow, boys. Tomorrow, boys. And I'm not talking like, yeah, I'll record it tonight. I'm talking like it's already fucking unlisted, boys. We gone. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.